are these people?
It's John Kiriakou, everybody. Everyone's favorite CIA whistleblower. One of. He went to jail for whistleblowing. Don't know if you know that story. If you don't, you can go watch the episode he was on with Tar Reed on the Politics of Survival right here on this channel. Should be a playlist for that. But he wrote this article September 18th over in Consortium. Another lovely publication. But he writes, animal grade poison food indicts U.S. society. Prisoners in the U.S. face chronic hunger and illness due to substandard and disgusting food as new Bureau of Prisons Director Colette Peters reportedly battles bureaucracy to reform the system. So, John's written in the past about an awful experience he had in prison a decade ago while serving 23 months in prison after blowing the whistle on the CIA's torture program. I was doing my time at the Federal Correctional Institute at Loretto, Pennsylvania, a low-security prison in the Appalachian Mountains. One of the very first things I found on my first day was that the food was bad. Very bad. I arrived in prison on a Thursday. The next day, Friday, was, quote, fish day. A fellow prisoner warned me to skip the fish. We call it sewer trout, he said. You don't want to put that in your body. Sure enough, when I got in line in the cafeteria, I saw boxes stacked behind the servers. Every box was very clearly marked Alaskan cod, product of China, not for human consumption, feed use only. that face is pretty good.
Feed. As
feed
in
use.
what you give to pigs.
Yes, or
Animals.
other animals, right. So yeah. That's what the servers were slopping onto our trays.
Oh god.
Things only got worse from there. I won't go into detail about the rat that drowned in the Kool-Aid dispenser. Oh no. I suppose things like that. Yeah.
I mean, I live in DC. I see plenty of rats. That doesn't seem so far-fetched.
Yeah, like that's normal. Like that's a good death for the rat. He's like, fuck yeah, sugar death. Yes. You know, I suppose things like this will happen from time to time, but what incident still makes me angry 10 years later? Every Wednesday evening was taco night. This disgusting concoction was ground beef, some sort of sauce, and a little onion. It was truly inedible, and I threw it away more often than I ate it. One day, guards posted a memo from the warden in every housing unit saying, sorry, through no mistake of our own, the company that sends us the ground beef for tacos accidentally mismarked a shipment of dog food as ground beef. That dog food was served to inmates. The Bureau of Prisons will find the company. Okay? I later read in Prison Legal News magazine that the company was fined and the BOP kept the money. But the real shame here isn't even that we ate dog food. The real shame is that we didn't even realize that it was dog food because the food is so bad every day. I can't tell you how many expired foods we were served still in the packaging and how many year-old frozen bagels dyed green for some previous St. Patrick's Day we were served every Sunday for a year. A new study by Impact Justice has found that this level of food quality is consistent in federal, state, and local prisons across America, the report says. That, like every other aspect of life in prison, the food is dreary and monotonous and, with rare exceptions, relentlessly bad. 2 slimy pieces of bologna sandwiched between flimsy slices of white bread, a packet of mustard, and a handful of potato chips one day, 2 boiled hot dogs, the same white bread, and a scoop of underbaked beans the next. These are concoctions too similar to differentiate.
Wait, how can you
baked beans when they're dry. Like when you take dry beans and then don't cook them long enough.
You typically put them in, but they're typically in the can. Well, I would imagine the prisons are getting them in the can.
Maybe
So,
it might be cheaper to do dry and then, not spend the time to cook them long enough.
oh
I
god.
don't know. These are concoctions too similar to differentiate, in which chunks of mystery meat swim in a dull gravy, sometimes atop mushy white rice, or a clump of pasta with the same watery tomato sauce week after week. In 2019, prisoners in Nevada complained to state officials that the food they were being served was unhealthy, of poor quality, highly processed, and too high in fat and sodium. The state's response was to cut portion sizes.
As if
Fucking,
they're
you don't
not
like
getting
it,
enough.
you're not gonna get it. That's what. Fuck you. Oh god. Anyway, last week, with prisoners quite literally starving from the meager portions, a local newspaper reported that many prisoners were eating toothpaste, salt, and even wet toilet paper to try to starve off the hunger. Bro, just start cooking those boots. Like, do something. Like, you know, a former prisoner told the paper when he was released from a Nevada minimum security work camp that a doctor told him that his legs and feet were swollen because of the poor diet that he had had for the 6 years that he was imprisoned. What he was given may have met standards for nutrition, but maybe the problem is with the state standards. You think?
I can, no, I can vouch for this.
Yeah.
Um, working in now, for those of you who know me, once upon a time, I used to work um for the Salvation Army. I ran. I was the director of a homeless daycare center, so we would feed these kids were homeless. So
Yeah.
we fed them, while they were with us at the daycare. And the gag that I always found funny was that ketchup was considered a fruit.
Yeah.
This is a state federal standard, I believe.
Right.
At least definitely with the state. Ketchup was considered a fruit.
Like, not as in it's made from a fruit, but like it is a
Right.
fruit.
That counted
Like,
as a survey.
yes, a fruit. Yeah, it's
So
fucking
ketchup.
stupid shit. Yep.
So
Uh,
so you can
so
get away with giving the kids like
nothing. Yeah.
hamburgers and fries every
Yes.
single day if you really wanted to, as long as they had ketchup on the
Ketchup.
side.
That makes sense. Okay. So, when the newspaper first brought the issue to public attention last week, a spokesman for the Nevada State Department of Corrections said, "There's a diet, excuse me, it may not be what we want, but a dietitian reviews is saying that it's the vitamins and requirements at a minimum that you need. I wonder if he knows about the dog food or the Chinese, Alaskan cod animal feed. I wonder if his legs and feet are swollen or if he's malnourished." Um, I had occasion last week to have dinner with another former federal prisoner. He said that he had tweeted so regularly about the poor conditions in American prisons that the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the BOP, finally asked him to come on as a paid advisor. One of the first issues he raised was that of food quality. He told me that the new director of the BOP, Colette Peters, genuinely wanted to do the right thing. Yeah, sounds like it. I'll see it when I believe it. He said her tenure as head of the Oregon Department of Corrections was successful and that she implemented positive changes there. But he went on to say, I like how there's a but, that Peters is up
Yeah.
against an entrenched bureaucracy at the BOP. It's a bureaucracy that sees her as an outsider, trying to push career BOP officials aside. They're doing whatever they can to block her reforms, waiting until she finally resigns or is fired so they can go back to business as usual. What does that sound like, Care Bear? That sounds real familiar. If only
I
we
mean, it
can
sounds like
reform things from the inside. Maybe that's what it sounds
right.
like. Um,
Or as a normal day, it's politics 101.
Yep.
basically.
Yep. Controlled op, all that fun stuff. So that means that the rest of us have to keep up the fight. Outrage is motivating. We shouldn't be proud that prison food in some of the worst countries in the world is better than what we have here. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, right? We have to fight it. Either Mahatma Gandhi or former President Hubert Humphrey, depending on what source you use, said the measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. The prison system and prison food certainly indict our society. So,
And I also add,
yes,
because
please.
I was thinking
The
this
whole
whole
time.
time,
Yep.
kids,
Yes.
school lunches,
Yes.
same shit. You can't tell me that what some of these kids eat for school lunch isn't comparable to what you will get in a prison.
If
You
not
cannot
worse.
tell me that.
If not
It's
worse.
probably just as bad, honestly. Maybe slightly better because they're kids, but the food and look, I grew up on school. Actually, you know what? Like, I remember when I was in the UK, when I grew up in the UK for elementary school. I remember those are cook moms. Like every day they were at a canteen. Like they actually cooked the food
Yeah.
every single day. Like nothing was processed. We didn't get anything like in styrofoam tray or whatever. Everything was cooked. Now, granted, at the time, it wasn't that great, but at least it was cooked fresh pretty much every day when we were in school. So like, and the fact that I came, and this was like for me in the 80s. So the fact that coming from that to like not preschool, middle school in the 90s, where it became more of the standard like stereotypical school lunch that we kind of show um here. Yeah, I just you cannot tell me that prison food and school lunches don't go hand in hand because often not they are the same companies that are providing both anyway. So, um, but yeah, like immediately my heart was school lunches are the same shit.
Well, and you know, we mentioned at the top of the show, you know, this is indicative of the growing problem of food in the country, let alone in these specific use
Right,
cases. You know, with food
right,
deserts being an inordinate thing, like you know, uh, how many people have access to good food, let alone food? You know,
right,
so that probably pushes them to do things that end them in prison where they get even worse food. So,
right,
you know, it's wild. You know, especially when you talk about all the modified crap, all the poison they just leave in the food. I mean, how many go look up what you can and can't feed your baby. Just go look up those lists of how all the toxic metals and crap is in everything. You know,
right. That's
like
part of the reason why my dad lives in Barbados for the good chunk of the year now because like he's always and my dad has been dealing with cancer for the last 30 years now. So like his thing is, yeah, obviously him wanting to maintain his health as long as he can, but he basically says, I know like in Barbados that everything is fresh. Everything typically, I can get if he doesn't grow it himself, but
yeah,
like usually it comes from the land. I know where it comes from. I know it doesn't have this extra shit that is going to make him sick. And actually, a lot of that, he kind of argues it's probably what got him to have cancer in the first place.
right.
So, compared to the UK, now you can argue in Europe, it's somewhat better because there are certain chemicals that you are not allowed to, there's certain
Not by
adjectives
much.
that are illegal
Yeah.
in Europe compared to here. But yeah, you're right. It's not by much.
I was
Where,
literally saw a thing yesterday about like British prisoners being like, I'm Muslim, so that I can get like halal meals, right?
right,
Until Ramadan comes up, and then they starve them all because like
right,
you're supposed to fast. So you know, but yeah, it's ugh. Hopefully,
right,
I've seen a ton of prisoner unions are a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
family members of prisoners unionizing are things. I mean, get on it, you know, you know, and like
Right.
if you have members that are locked up, you might, help them out, send them some food, something, you know. Like we're not meant to be poisoning our indicted. We're meant to be rehabilitating. But what do I know?
Well,
So
that's the thing. It's like we don't think of it that way.
no, no, it's
We don't think of it
punishment
that way.
in and of
It's
itself.
punishment. So it's just like, but again, but it's like, okay, but as I said, children eat this similar shit.
Yep.
So what does that say about our society that you're willing to give something similar to our
Good
children?
brain food.
Right.
Alaskan Chinese cod animal feed. That's
Well, granted, again, it's not that extreme, but you still can argue the quality is still not that great.
yeah,
In terms of, even for school lunches on at least on the federal level, in this country. So yeah,
yeah,
it's just bad all around. Like our food culture here sucks all around
awful.
generally. Um, and we don't honor the least of these or anybody in terms of like good nutrition. Like you essentially have to pay a lot of money in order to hopefully try to
Yeah.
not put all those additives and chemicals in your body that can essentially make you sick
Well,
or
if you're
worse.
watching this as a clip, you know, let us know. If you had any experiences with food in prison, put in the comments down below. You know, like, subscribe, do all that stuff.
As I said, I've only had school lunch,
Yep,
so
that's just as bad.
that's the closest I will get.
Put that
Yeah.
experience down below. That food fight you had in like fourth grade. Talk about that. But anyway,